Everybody, Brandon Lewis here with the Tennessee Conservative News Big 7 Weekend Digest. Luckily for you, I go in and watch the news and read the news and report the news so you don't have to, because it is a messy business. I am Brandon Lewis, founder of the Tennessee Conservative. I hope you've got a great, fantastic weekend to cover, and I'm going to bring to you the top 7 stories. We're doing this a little early because I've got to go down and set up for the Hamilton County Lincoln Day Dinner, an event I've been to several times for 20 years. And if you're down there, come see me. I'll be set up in a little booth out front. I'll be drinking some wine and listening to some conservative or at least some Republican thought at this event. Hopefully, some conservative thought as well. And do in the comments section here, let's have a conversation. Tell me what you think about these stories as we go through them. Tell me where you're from and where you're watching in the great state of Tennessee, or if you're from Maine and you're moving down here, if you're from Portland, Oregon. We've got lots of folks that are moving from really blue states into Tennessee, and they're bringing their conservative values with them. And so if you're one of those people, let me know. So we're going to get into these 7 big stories. Now, there are lots of stories, right? And I could cover a lot of them, but if you'll go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com, you can subscribe there and you can read all of these in greater detail than I will cover them. But for today, we're going to cover the big stories, or at least the big stories that I think are of interest that we covered at the Tennessee Conservative News this week. So let's start off with the first story. Lead story, and I think it's a big deal, and I'll give you some commentary on it. Conservatives will protest against Bill Lee at Chattanooga GOP event. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee will likely hear from respectful but discontented citizens when he arrives to address the Hamilton County Republicans at the GOP's annual Lincoln Day dinner. Supporters of Tennessee Neighbors for Liberty are planning to gather in a peaceful protest at the venue before Governor Lee arrives. I'm actually taking this backdrop over there because I'll be indoors. We'll have protests outside, we'll have celebrations inside, and I'm just going to be in the lobby, at least for the beginning. The group's president, Glenda Papu, said, "We are law-abiding citizens, but we also understand our clear rights, and our elected leaders know that we will not tolerate further infringements on our rights due to ever-changing CDC guidelines that are clearly not science-based." And we're going to get into some of these flip-flopping CDC guidelines. Andrea Hawkinson from Parsons, Tennessee, just moved here from Washington. Thank you for joining us, honey. Glad that you're here. I don't know if you can use honey anymore to say anything nice without it being sexual harassment, but people say it to me at the Waffle House and the Burger King drive-thru, so I assume it's okay. The group, moving on, the group also believes that the Lee administration has been less than transparent with Tennessee citizens about policies that led to illegal alien children being housed and sexually abused, which happened in Chattanooga dormitory previously associated with Tennessee Temple University. Now, one big thing about this story, so just backing up to 2 things. Number one, we have not had our liberties and constitutional freedoms defended by Bill Lee during COVID. We've had them stripped away. And we're going to kind of review a little 10 for 10 thing here in a moment. It's been a big mess, okay? That's been a big mess. And then this illegal immigration center that Bill Lee authorized and placed in our community here in Chattanooga that was later shut down because of molestation and runaways. And if that was what was reported, who knows what else happened. And he acts as if he had nothing to do with it, which is very misleading. So these guys have reasons to be aggravated. And he'll also be taken to task over his 10 for 10 campaign promises, which include the following. And you let me know if you think that Governor Lee has delivered on these things. Number one, foster an environment where jobs continue to grow. Jobs didn't continue to grow, they shrank. We have 24% fewer small businesses, the group that was really hit harder than any other group during the pandemic from a business standpoint. Corporations did just fine. Small businesses, under the draconian winners and losers laws that Bill Lee let go through, really took it hard. And so that we can't say that we've done number one, I don't think. Number two, rethink public education with major vocational reforms, real school choice, and civics education. School choice is tied up in the courts. And instead of it being real school choice, it was school choice for underprivileged children in a handful of markets by the time it got through committees. I don't know if that's real school choice or not. Civics education, I've seen a lot of critical race theory education being pushed, and even though it's illegal, teachers are saying they're going to teach it, but it's not being, they've not been punished to my knowledge. I've seen no reports of that. And our kids can't read and write, and they were, and Governor Lee in many ways let our teachers unions and our out of control school boards run all over teachers and parents for an entire year, mask them, bully them, set them at home, change their entire work environment where they couldn't hold down a job. So I don't know on education how hot he's doing. Stand up for rural, just number 3, stand up for rural Tennessee by expanding economic opportunity and winning the war on opioids. I don't know what's been done on that. Somebody could fill me in here. I mean, you write it in the comments section. Let me know. Has this been done? Has something been done on it? Number 4, get tough on the state budget by making government smaller and more efficient. I doubt that it's any smaller now than it was then. If it is, by all means, let me know, but I bet it's bigger. So that's the 4th promise. And one thing that, people always like about President Trump is you may not like his rhetoric and maybe his personality, but he made a few key promises and he delivered on them, if not in whole, partially, whenever he could, and he was having to fight the rhinos and the left at the same time. Number 5, ensure new voices in Nashville by passing term limits and challenging the influence of cultural insiders. I've not seen a whole lot of draining the swamp in Nashville. I've not seen any term limits passed. So that's a failure. That's a campaign promise. Now, these are promises, right? When people promise something, they're supposed to deliver it. I don't know about this. Create a new office of faith-based and community initiatives. That was probably done. I don't know if it was done or not, but that's like, here's this thing. Here's a committee. Oh, great. That's fantastic. I'm sure that was probably done because that's like something that probably, I'm glad it's about what it's about, but I don't know if anything has actually been done by it. Maybe it has been. Okay, I don't know. By all means, write in the comment section. Let me know. Number 7, make government more accessible, open, and accountable to taxpayers. We can't even get a comment out of the governor's office. I've quit submitting requests for them. We've got tons of liberal news outlets all over Tennessee, and the governor's office will give them comments, but there are only 2 conservative news outlets, and to my knowledge, I think they mainly just ignore us. So, probably tells you what you need to know. So I don't know that it's more accessible, open, and accountable to taxpayers. It seems like that the government has not been accountable during COVID to the taxpayers at all. It's just been whatever the whim of Governor Lee has been. 8, protect and defend a culture of life. I don't know if we've had any significant movement on that. Maybe we have. Again, write it in the comments section. Number 9, defend our constitutional liberties without compromise. That is a failure. Not only did he not defend our constitutional liberties without compromise, he did nothing but compromise, and he's continued to compromise our liberties. So he failed there. And number 10, enforce the rule of law on immigration. You don't enforce the rule of law on immigration by allowing an illegal immigration center to be authorized by you and placed in a community without any conversation where kids are molested and lost. So I know a few of these I can just tell you straight up. I mean, I'm looking at least at 50% here that I can say not only did he not deliver on those 10 for 10 promises, he lied to us about a lot of things on here. That's an issue. Moving on to the next story, but that's the big one for this week, and here's why it is such a big story, and then I'll move on. And I don't mean to beat up on Governor Lee here, and I thank you, Charles, for joining us, buddy. I appreciate you being here. I think the big thing on it is this. I've been following, pretty closely. I mean, I've ran and been in a couple of federal races, one statewide, one in a congressional district that changed redistricting, and I bet that probably ended up covering 20, 30 counties by the time I was done, and just generally paying attention. I've never seen a governor be protested by conservatives at a Lincoln Day dinner. When it gets so bad that your own party protests against you at your party's event, you know you're missing the mark. Missing the mark with the primary voter. It is It's unique. It is interesting. Next story: Mayor Kelly orders Chattanooga community centers to remain closed. Mayor Tim Kelly has ordered the closure of all community centers indefinitely at the conclusion of summer camp due to, quote, spiking COVID-19 infections among unvaccinated Chattanoogans. Well, a lot of the hospitalizations and reoccurrences of COVID right now are happening in vaccinated individuals. So, you could have some of that going on there too, Kelly. Kelly announced following the closures of Carver, East Chattanooga, West Hills, and Francis B. Watt community centers over a 4-day period, which all were closed due to a single, just one confirmed COVID-19 case at each facility. I'm sorry, guys. It's not the Black Death. It just isn't. And we don't have to turn our lives upside down every time somebody gets a case of something. We really don't. And it can't be like that forever. We can't close down institutions, businesses every time there's some little small thing that happens, but some people do that. Next story. Tennessee man dies of heart attack due to swatting. Now, swatting is calling a police department with a false story of a crime in progress with the intent to draw a large number of police officers to a particular address. And last week, a teenager was sentenced to swatting a 60-year-old Tennessee man who eventually died of a fatal heart attack. The teenager and his partner in crime targeted Mark Herring of Sumner County because they were after his valuable Twitter handle at Tennessee. Amazing. Amazing that someone would do something so irresponsible over something so little. And I tell you what, it is a sign of the times that we're living in culturally, where things that should be right are wrong and things that should be wrong are right. In April 2020, the 18-year-old Shane Sonderman made a call to the police saying that a murder had taken place at Herring's residence and that there were pipe bombs on the property. Herring's daughter said that law enforcement officers swarmed the property with their guns drawn. The shock caused Herring to have a massive fatal heart attack. Sonderman was charged with conspiracy, false information, hoaxes, interstate communication, and threats of wire fraud. But with a plea bargain, all charges except for the conspiracy charge were dropped, and he was sentenced to 5 years in jail. Sonderman's partner in crime is a British minor who has not been extradited to the U.S. 5 years for a life seems kind of light to me. I don't know. According to the indictment, Herring was one of 5 individuals targeted by the teens as part of a plan to acquire social media handles to sell for profit on internet forums. Go get a job, you lazy bastards, and quit messing around with people trying to make money the easy way. Work like the rest of us, save your money, be responsible, and don't be a criminal if you can help it. Next story. Hundreds of lawmakers asked SCOTUS to overturn Roe v. Wade. A University of Michigan law graduate is set to submit an amicus brief to the U.S. Supreme Court, arguing a coalition of approximately 22 pro-life groups and several legislators called signatures more than 300 lawmakers in 35 states in support of the brief. Michigan State Rep. Steve Carra said, quote, "We are hoping to accomplish protecting life with our respective states as much as possible. Roe v. Wade was abundantly unconstitutional. It's now clear that it's life in the womb, not potential life." And I agree. And if you're pro-life, give me an amen in here, because we need people to stand up against this. I sincerely believe in my heart of hearts that people will look back historically at the United States, at abortion, and think of it very much like slavery. I hope that we're moving in that direction, although one side of the aisle doesn't think so. Next story. Critics denounce new CDC guidelines. It's humorous when you have to chuckle reading a headline. Things have gotten out of control. Critics denounce new CDC guidelines urging mask usage, vaccine or not. The CDC changed course Tuesday. You could honestly write almost every article about the CDC's recommendations with the CDC changed course X. I mean, these people are the blind, deaf, and dumb leading the blind, deaf, and dumb over there. And you've got organizations and institutions and individuals following these people's advice and recommendations. They have lost all credibility, in my opinion, and they are just a political tool at this point. Reversing its previous COVID-19 guidance by urging Americans to wear masks regardless of their vaccination status. I think before long, I kid you not, CDC is going to recommend that dead people who have been buried less than 18 months be dug up, masked, and buried again. I think that's where we're headed. The decision throws more fuel on the fire as Americans debate the efficacy and safety of the vaccine, and many have already expressed their disapproval of the new mandates. The CDC announcement took fire from Republicans who argue it will further weaken Americans' confidence in the vaccine. I mean, they're trying to have it both ways. Take the vaccine so you don't have to wear the mask. Oh, you have to wear the mask anyway. What's the point in having the vaccine? Well, if the vaccine works, then why do I need a mask? Well, if the mask works, why do I need a vaccine? I mean, it's just, you have to turn yourself into illogical knots to say yes to any of this stuff. Regarding the CDC statement that all children in school should be wearing masks, Missouri's Attorney General said, quote, closed circuit transmission to our Attorney General. Please take a stance on this and protect our kids the way Missouri's Attorney General is doing, if you would like to. There is absolutely no scientific reason to continue to force children to wear a mask in school. Back in May, I filed suit against the St. Louis County for continuing to impose such unlawful restrictions, and just 3 days later those restrictions were lifted. Our Tennessee Attorney General could get in the fight on this and help protect our children. I hope he will. I will continue to fight back to the AG in Missouri. I will continue to fight this seemingly unending control and intrusion in people's lives. We will not back down. Next story. Lawsuit seeks to reinstate federal employment benefits in Tennessee. You can't walk outside without tripping over a dozen jobs. But here we are. A lawsuit filed last Friday in the Middle District of Tennessee is asking the court to intervene and allow Tennessee residents receiving unemployment benefits to again take part in the federal supplemental pandemic relief program. Governor Bill Lee, a defendant in the case, ended the state's participation in the federal unemployment program July 4th. The other defendant is Jeff McCord, Commissioner of Tennessee's Department of Labor and Workforce Development. The lawsuit, filed by Nashville attorney Gary Blackburn on behalf of several citizens and a potential class that includes all Tennesseans on unemployment, states that because of the termination of the federal benefits, plaintiffs are facing extreme hardships such as inability to pay for basic livings, expenses, houses, utility, food, health care, and child care. Now listen, some people are in a bad way, but you know what? I've done a lot of different things for a living, but if I were unemployed, that would last for a handful of days. I don't care if I could always go be a helper for a landscape company. I could walk out the door, I could go find something, I could hold something, I could move something around, I could move a wheelbarrow around, I could do something. I could stand in a door, I could greet people, I could be a hostess, I could probably learn to wait tables. I'd just go out and get a job. And it used to be that we had an American work ethic. And if it weren't for a small remnant of Americans who still have a good Protestant work ethic, there wouldn't be a restaurant or a retail outlet open right now. It's only those people who are holding on more to their dignity than the government teat that are keeping our nation going right now. When you see people out there that are working while everybody else is sitting on their lazy keister taking money from people that have earned it, and basically letting the government steal for them and taking that kind of stuff instead of working when they're able-bodied, you should be thanking those people that are out there working, because they're the ones that are keeping everything going. New legislation introduced to end government collusion with big tech. Hopefully I can get an interview with Senator Hagerty about this. Closed circuit transmission. I'll send an email to Hagerty's press person, because this is something I'm very interested in. U.S. Senator Bill Hagerty, along with several other Republican senators, introduced the Disclosed Government Censorship Act. The act seeks to end the government-directed speech suppression and viewpoint censorship by the White House recently revealed in stating that it routinely urges big tech companies to remove the speech of Americans that the government deems inaccurate or unhelpful, which would basically be everything that criticizes the government. It used to be that the press was very skeptical of the government, and that they did not believe them, and they did not buy everything that they told them. But now the press is like an extension of the government. It's like a government propaganda office. I don't know when that happened, but it is shameful. You're not a reporter if you're just trying to tell everybody to do what the government tells them to do. We're still doing it the old school way. I'm very distrustful of government. I'm very distrustful of people in power, because if you read in the Bible and if you watch human history, people don't do well when they have too much power. And men tend to be rather sinful, and they really basically just want to control other men. That's the bottom line. And so we've got to put safeguards in place. The legislation aims to require transparency from government, including the Biden administration, when they collude with big tech and silence Americans in the process. Now listen, We bring you stories that no other media outlet will ever bring you, I promise. And if you go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com/support, it is the only way I can continue to do this. Guys, I need your help. You get 2 proud Tennessee Conservative bumper stickers. You get a directory of all your state senators and state house members, so that if you need to call them about legislation or to thank them and urge them to pass good conservative legislation or to keep good conservative legislation from dying in committees and subcommittees, this is a great resource to do that. And you have the Proud Tennessee Conservative tumbler here. You may see me drinking out of this thing. You may see me drinking out of this thing tonight at the Hamilton County Republican Party Lincoln Day dinner. If you're there, come see me. Come stop by my table. I'll have my smoking hot wife with me, and I'll be dressed up like Santa Claus, or at least an elf at my size. You'll see. Big red suit, and come by the booth. Say hey. I would love to see you. TennesseeConservativeNews.com/support. And if you're one of those people that just follows us on Facebook, don't be a crazy person. Go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com, subscribe to our email and our text alerts, because one day we may get shut down, right? I mean, we're moving into crazy town with censorship in America, which I never thought would happen. So do go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com. We send out a great e-newsletter. Thanks to Jason Vaughn for coordinating that, and our freelance reporters and our conservative citizen journalists who make it happen. All right, hopefully I don't have another story. I don't. I have finished the Big 7. So I'm glad that I'm here with you. Please do forward this and share this in the conservative groups that you're in Facebook. Send it via email so that people know the conservative news stories. All your friends that are conservative news junkies, we would love to have them like our page and to subscribe so that we can make sure that people know what's going on with conservative news in Tennessee. I will see those of you who are close and going to this event, whether you are outside protesting or inside celebrating. I will see probably all of you tonight at the Hamilton County Lincoln Day dinner. I think it's going to be a great event. Come by and see me. If not, I'll talk to you next week. Brandon Lewis with the Tennessee Conservative News, signing off. Take care, guys. Be good.